A series that has gone on since 2009, guys, that has had games pretty consistently throughout the course of its history is Angry Birds. But I want to talk about, what happened here with Angry Birds, because this used to be a very popular series as far as from a video game perspective, and now, of course, they're coming out with movies and such for Angry Birds. But I want to talk about kind of what happened in the video games of Angry Birds, and, what was it that maybe had them, peak at one point, and then, of course, where was the decline, and where could it be going in the future? So let's talk about it. According to Wikipedia, guys, I want to go through kind of the release timeline here. We had, of course, games basically every single year, and this is where this got really interesting, in my opinion, was in 2009, of course, we had Angry Birds, the very first one. First game of the series, people absolutely loved it. Then you have the second one in 2010, which was Seasons, and then, of course, in 2011, you had Angry Birds Rio, and then we had three games, essentially, that came out in the span of, a few months. That being Angry Birds Friends, Angry Birds Space, and Angry Birds Star Wars, all of which are all in the puzzle genre. And this is where it was kind of, where we kind of stayed until 2013, or I should say later 2013, until we got into the racing side of things, that being Angry Birds Go. And so I think, obviously, Angry Birds, for the longest time, guys, this is a puzzle-based, this should be in the puzzle-based genre. That's what this is all meant to be. Now, of course, they kind of started to expand this into racing and role-playing and a side-scrolling shooter, a tile-matching role-playing game. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But basically, we were having games essentially every single year. Sometimes you were having 2 to 3 games a year that were coming out. And so, in my opinion, there was just so much oversaturation in the Angry Birds franchise. And so we got to, of course, more recently than anything, you had, June of 2017 and August of 2017, you had Angry Birds Evolution and Angry Birds Match. And then in 2019, so a couple years after that, is when we got our, most recent additions, that being the 17th game in the series and the 18th game in the series, Angry Birds Dream Blast and Angry Birds VR AR Isle of Pigs, which was a puzzle game, but it was VR and AR. And so what I'm getting at here, guys, is that Angry Birds has kind of changed over time. It was a puzzle game, and then it became a racing game, and then it kind of almost had some kind of identity crisis throughout the course of its history. Not that it was, really hurting the series, but if you look at all of the canceled games within the Angry Birds franchise, you have a number of them, guys. You had an Angry Birds, which was canceled in 2016, and then another Angry Birds football game, which was a puzzle, which was in December 2016, was canceled. And then, of course, you had a number of these that were unreleased, and some were released. So you had Angry Birds Ace Fighter, Angry Birds Holiday. These were all released, but then they were canceled later that year. And so what I'm getting at here, guys, is that some of these just did not work whatsoever. And the most recent one was in February 2018, was not even released, called Angry Birds Heroes, a role-playing game. And so what I think at the end of the day happened here with Angry Birds is oversaturation. I mean, we're talking just game after the game was coming out. And sure, great concepts at first, had really, it was a really fun game, guys, without a doubt. I enjoyed playing it myself. But there comes a point where you're playing these games and it almost becomes overkill in a number of ways. I mean, when you have so many games that you're trying to keep up with, and when you're talking a game that's on the iOS or on Android or, wherever you're playing the game, it can become very overwhelming. And they, of course, did take care of, they obviously had a lot of success because they made movies out of these. They've been able to continue making more and more games. But I think at the end of the day, there's just a lot of oversaturation in my personal opinion. But let me know, guys, What do you guys think about Angry Birds, and what do you guys think happened here with this franchise, and where do you think it's going moving forward? Because for myself, I don't know where they're going with this. In all the possibilities that you could really think of, I feel that they're going to continue making these games. I mean, why wouldn't they? If they're successful, they're continuing to make them. They want to continue evolving this franchise over time. That being the movie side as well as the video game side. Why would they ever stop making these games? But the question is, though, is kind of more so, what do you guys think happened to it? Because it seemed like it was doing great, and then all of a sudden, some of these games, it's just not really what this franchise was really meant to be. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Angry Birds content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.